after we ordered it, after it was on the verge of imminently being installed. It wasn't a 1,000 signature petition. It was people who came from the Meadows, and I think it was between 500 and 600 people, who said we have no objection to the cell tower, but we want it as a tree, not as a tower that blends in to the makeup of the sky. We spoke with our contractor on that, and he essentially told us two things. You essentially want to do that, I'm going to sue you, number one. And number two, you don't have a leg to stand on because I've already ordered this thing. So we did take into account the people's concerns in that area. We took them into account over a lengthy period of time through public hearings. And for us to have canceled the cell tower that we were contractually obligated to purchase at the cost and expense of the Lewisboro taxpayer would have been absolutely irresponsible. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions when you're on the council.
Mr. Welch, do you have anything to add before? No? Okay. Steve?
Yeah. Earlier you suggested that the town is suffering through some cash flow problems. I'm just wondering, longer term, what you propose for better financial health?
We're going to start with Mr. Welch, then Mr. Papalaro, then Mr. LaSorsa.
The town has been in a state of financial challenge since the 2008 financial crisis. At that time, we had lived through probably 10, 15 years of no tax increases and basically burning the furniture in order to be able to declare that we don't have any tax increases. So we already had a surplus which was below the recommendation from the state controller. Then the crisis hits, real estate receipts go down, and we've been trying to eke it back up ever since in a way so not to throw a big increase on all at once, get back in shape. Meanwhile, just in the past year or two, changes to the way the cash flow situation relative to the tax receipts of the school come through and put us in a cash flow crunch, which was not necessarily a long-term crunch, it was just going to be shifting cash flows. This was not anticipated, so we did have a crunch that was related to that. So we have been creeping back. Our surplus is back at $700,000 at this point. It's getting healthier. Our credit rating is where it needs to be. But we did have the cash flow crunch because of that event with the changes in the school receipt process. So that will flow through and be okay.
You done? Oh, Mr. Papalaro?
So you asked a very good question. When I came on the board, we were an at-risk community by New York State because we didn't have any money in reserve. And through attrition, through some very difficult fiscal decisions, we increased that rating to one that constitutes being stable. Once we were able to do that, we were in a very strong position to borrow money and borrow money at a very competitive rate. We did just that, and we poured it directly into our infrastructure. So we enhanced our fiscal standing and our capacity to borrow during very difficult economic times by making difficult decisions through attrition and very detailed management of expenses. Now that doesn't answer your question, and I'm going to buy a little bit more time before I try to, because I'm not sure I have an answer. We have two significant sources of revenue that the town had changed this year. We collect the school taxes, and the school would allow us to hold the remittance of those taxes to them for about 30 days. We collected interest. That interest was working to our budget, was very important to us. The school has elected to have us remit the taxes that we collect as of the first day of the month. So we lost that interest, and they have a right to do that, and no question about it. We've also lost a portion of the mortgage tax revenue. Now, the mortgage tax is that when real estate sells in any town, if there's a mortgage that's secured, you have to actually pay a state to New York tax. It's 0.75% less, I think, $20 or $25. We get a portion of that. by virtue of the fact that we now have a federal tax plan that has really reduced the capacity to take real estate taxes, the sole deduction that everybody knows of, it's impacted the fair market values of our property. That's a federal policy, not a local policy. It's impacted the fair market value of everybody's properties. If property values come down, then assessments come down.
1 minute.
So the taxes that are collecting from people is reduced. And people are buying at a smaller amount of money, and as a consequence, the mortgage is less, the mortgage tax that we remitted to us is less. I've been on the board now for 9 years. I'm envisioning this is going to be by far the most difficult budgetary season that we've ever had. For those two reasons, our sources of our revenue have dried up. What's the answer? I really have worked hard not to be disciplined relative to tax raising. I'm not sure that we can cut too much without providing necessary services. And as I sit here today, I don't have a definitive response for you. I'm being candid. When we get into the budget, I'm hoping I can find some expenses that can further be cut or defrayed. I'm hoping that maybe we can borrow a little bit more money. I'm also hoping to bolster the Parks and Recreations Department and their capacity to earn money, because we derive them a benefit from that. We're looking at securing the Lewisboro gym, which has been vacant for far too long.
It was time.
Demanding that fair market value rent be paid on that. And candidly, when something's vacant for 2 or 3 years, I'm not sure it has any fair market value in terms of rent. We're trying to negotiate a deal with them. If we can bring in basketball programs, other recreational programs, that is a revenue raiser for us. It goes into Parks and Rec, and we can maybe reduce their budget. So that's, I'm going to look at expenses and some other resources for
Time, Mr. Pappalardo. Thank you.
correct.
Mr.
Okay,
Lasorsa?
So I'm not on the board. I haven't been on the board for the past 9 years like these two gentlemen. All I can do is be an observer, such as yourself, okay? But what I heard tonight was that we're using interest from someone else's money, and someone else changed their mind, and now we're up the creek. So that's not good planning. That's a problem that we have. Okay, we have for years our revenues have been under our tax collections. Okay, so we're not really, if we're developing a surplus, I'm not aware of it. Okay. I mentioned some of the things that I think we should do in order to, I haven't heard a lot from the two gentlemen on the board, but I've mentioned some of the things that I think we have to do to enhance our revenues. We talked about bonding some of our infrastructure programs instead of trying to pay it out of our tax revenues. I think we should be thinking about outsourcing and sharing some of our programs. So in terms of maybe what the highway department can do, possibly we can share some equipment. Maybe we can outsource some things. Maybe get a little bit less in terms of a little bit of a break in terms of what we have to do. John did mention a good point, but I think it's nothing special. It's been out there. We've got to enhance our recreational facilities. We've got to make it pleasurable to be in Lewisboro. People will come here and spend money here, okay? And people maybe want to make the decision to live here, so our mortgage receipts will go up. Okay, I haven't seen that on this board for the last 9 years. And I'll tell you something else, and certainly for the last two with the current incantation of the board. And I'll tell you something else. If this board is so interested in increasing recreational facilities, then why haven't they done anything with respect to our town pool? It's in shambles. The building needs repair. The pool is always underfunded and underutilized, and I think we've got to look there. There's money that can be made to make this town, to enhance this town. There's money that people would willingly spend, but I just don't think it's being tapped. And I've given you a few examples that I think should be done.
Yeah.
There's a capital plan which includes fixes to the pool, and we've poured plenty of money into that pool over the years, during the past 10-15 years, with fixes and improvements, and there's more yet to come. That's not really going to be a source of improvement to the budget. It's a service that everyone values, and it's going to be fixed, but that's definitely not going to be some improvement to the budget. The comment was made that, I guess the point was that Greg is saying that we are revenues have fallen short of expenses over the past few years. That's not true. We've been building up a surplus. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. And lastly, I'll just make a point that we're kind of playing around on the periphery here. These are not huge dollar issues. Everyone knows that the town taxes are about 7% of your total real estate tax bill. And Lewisboro town taxes are actually on a per capita basis the lowest in the region, save Somers, which is probably going to go up now that they're losing some of their revenue from some of the big office complexes there. So Bedford is something like 3 times ours on a per capita basis. North Salem's over twice. And so we've been running the town on a really skinny level for many years. We had the lowest salaries in the county, and we've been trying to do it on a shoestring. But if the time comes when, okay, we're not getting interest on the float anymore, we've got an extra, $50,000 worth of cover, you gotta live with it. And it's basically also one pocket from one pocket to the other anyway, since it's school dollars or it's our dollars. So when these things come up, there may be some tax increases.
Can I respond?
Well,
Take
we
another
gotta
question.
keep going because,
With the next line of questioning, if you want,
Yeah,
so.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna ask permission, can I use my time again in response?
Yeah, with the next line, yeah, yeah.
it's only
Yeah.
because Dan got to speak twice on
Yeah.
that issue, that's why I agree.
Oh, we did, my apologies. That was, my apologies to the audience. Sorry, Detective, I apologize. Next question? Mickey? You got?
Okay, my question to you gentlemen deals with the elephant I see in this room. We've talked about the Walter Walter project, and the Golden's Bridge Community House, and the zoning changes that relate to them. And it appears that the town board is behind both of those projects, full force. But there's one other project that wasn't mentioned here tonight, so I'm gonna ask you a question about that, and that is the Mercedes-Benz project. The question is, do you think the magnitude and the specifics of the current Mercedes-Benz expansion project that's before the town is appropriate for its location in Golden's Bridge?
So the order will be, again, my fault for the previous would be John, then Greg, and then Dan.
Okay, Mickey, thank you for the question. I want to respond to a couple of things Greg said during the previous response. Neglect of the town pool is just not true. As a matter of fact, by virtue of the fact that I spoke to earlier, we were able to increase our credit rating. We borrowed money very cheap. We took a portion of that bond and we poured it into the pool. Is there still work that needs to be done? Absolutely. Has significant work been done? Yes, it has been. We bonded, we put it back into the infrastructure. In terms of our reserve, every year that I've been on the board, we have put money into the reserve, which again enhanced our prospect in terms of borrowing money because our credit rating was improved. So I just want to make sure that we're accurate on the facts when we're having this narrative. Mickey, the affordable housing piece I'm not going to address in my limited time here. While I appreciate your question,
Well, the question relates
Mercedes-Benz,
directly to
and I'm gonna
Mercedes-Benz,
get to
yeah,
that,
the
but
affordable housing and
but you
stuff.
built it into that question.
Right.
Relative to the board being fully behind the affordable housing project, that's a complicated discussion.
Well, I didn't say
I
that.
understand that. No, you did say
I
that.
meant the
Yeah.
zoning changes
Right,
and the
okay.
inherent,
I spoke to the zoning change on Bedford Road, which I am told today should not affect more than 2 parcels of property, Mercedes-Benz. Okay. We have looked at the plans for Mercedes-Benz. They've gone over to the planning board.
I just want to save you some stress. Or
I'm
the
not
question is, no, I mean about explaining. The question is, do you think, knowing what you know, it's appropriate as presented for the location it's presented in?
Do I support the expansion of?
No, that's not the question.
Do I think it's appropriate?
Do you think the project, the size of it, you've seen it, the size of it, the inherent variances and all of that is appropriate for where it's located? That's basically really what I want to know is how you feel about
If you're
that.
limiting me just to that response,
Well,
whether
that's
it's
the question.
appropriate or not, I support it. By virtue of the fact that I support it, I think it's appropriate.
So you think it belongs there, it's okay to
I
put it there?
responded to your question, I'm happy to
Okay.
expand
Well,
on it,
that's,
but
all right. You can if you want, you have time.
I don't know if
Yeah,
I
you-
do that.
You have time. A little over a minute, yeah,
Yeah.
a little over a
I
minute.
think that the Mercedes, the expansion of the Mercedes-Benz is gonna enhance the area for a couple of reasons. First of all, at least the plans that I looked at, the landscaping that will front Route 22, I think will really be beautiful, candidly, if it's constructed in the way that it's been presented and it's maintained. So I think from that standpoint, it's an upgrade. Also, and we all know this who live, I live right behind the Mercedes-Benz dealership, traveling up and down Route 22 can sometimes be hazardous because they take their vehicles, they load their vehicles, and they unload their vehicles. That's gonna be done at a different location, not right on Route 22. I think those are two significant upgrades in terms of safety and efficiency and for aesthetic purposes. Sound, we wanna make sure that there's some restrictions relative to the issue of
15
sound.
seconds.
We wanna make sure there's some restrictions relative to light, and the project is still a work in
So a
progress.
51,000 square foot building on there, in that spot on 22 is okay with you? That's really the question, is the
I can't
magnitude
be any more
of it.
unequivocal in my response was yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna address your question. I wanna try to put the budget issue to bed with a simple question. If the budget is so great and, you know, we're in such great financial shape, then why are we scrambling to change our zoning law to pick up a $500,000 sale of property before the end of the year? Okay, now, to address your question, as you know, I'm on the planning board, and the planning board is wrestling with that issue, so I don't know that I can really give a concrete opinion, but I'll tell you what's been said so far. And you know what I've said. I've come to your house, I've looked at the property, you made an issue about putting car stackers next to your property. I went down to New Rochelle and I observed car stackers,
And I
okay?
did hear what you
And
said
I
about
said
that,
in
yes.
an open hearing that I wouldn't want them next to my house at all. I don't even want them cut down, I wouldn't want them next to my house. So I'm on record as saying that, okay?
Yes,
So
you
at least
are. I
that
was there.
aspect of that project, I don't agree with. Jerome Kerner, who is the
Former
senior
chair.
member of the zoning board, has said, after viewing the project in the context of going to your home and a few of the other homes, that the project has to be reasonable. Okay, he did not elucidate on what he meant, but he said it has to be reasonable, and you made reference to the fact that they're expanding by 51,000 feet, okay?
No, that's the building size, is
Okay, building
51,000.
size, absolutely. Now, there are changes that have to be made to that project, okay? There are, to that location. We can't have the cars on the berms on Route 22, and they're addressing that. The issue of whether that has to be scaled down, the planning board is dealing with that. But I've already given you a little bit of what I've said already, okay? So, I mean, that's where I am so far.
I think there's been pressure on them to try and bring the scale down as far as possible. There is some degree of sausage making that goes on in coming to a final deal on this thing. I think in the net, getting that site cleaned up and having a thriving business there is an important factor. And, you know, I don't think this is something where, like, the town board can come swooping in and say, you know what, 51,000 square feet is just out of line with the character of the neighborhood.
Well, it is.
And, well, I'm just saying, this really, from any practical standpoint, there's no opportunity for us to come in and, like, redesign the thing as a town board. Say, you know, it's a needed project. Scale-wise, nothing else in Golden Bridge is gonna be like that, but that particular site has been the site of, you know, sort of what would be a tractor place, years and years ago or whatever. Has always been a sort of semi-commercial, industrial kind of piece right there, legacy-wise. And now it's gonna be upgraded, and I think it'll be an important. I think they'll make a lot of efforts. I know you're not satisfied, but there's gonna be more efforts to be a good citizen. And on the net, it's gonna be a benefit for us. I know you have individual issues with it, and, you know, I wish that was better, but.
Thank you.
Just got
Okay.
one quick question.
Yes.
Both Johns. what's the projected increase in tax revenue attributable to the expansion of Mercedes-Benz?
John and Dan.
Excuse me?
I mean, John and Dan.
Oh, John Dan, sorry.
But if,
I don't know that we've had an assessment yet on it, but, you know, what's the increase in area? It's like a 50% increase. You know, the assessor has to come and do what they do.
What's your estimate of the number?
Well, we can't estimate the number under the fact that the final plans haven't been approved. So that's number one, but let's look at it from a different perspective. Mercedes-Benz was on the verge of leaving our town, which would have been a loss of significant tax revenue.
What's
They
the
have, Mike, I don't know the exact number, but I know that they do derive tax revenue from that. Can I tell you the exact number? No, I can't.
Can you give me a ballpark?
No,
Is it $1 million?
I don't wanna misrepresent.
No, Mike, it's not. You can get it from the assessor's
The,
office.
and
And it's keep coming back to this fiduciary responsibility. I'm trying to understand that, you know, you've got $1 million budget. Mercedes-Benz is probably the biggest entity we have in our town. And we're talking about expanding it. And it seems like neither of you gentlemen are on board. Maybe you can evaluate the impact of losing it or the impact of the expansion from a financial perspective. Yet, on the other hand, you're saying we're getting better with our budgeting process. I'm just trying to connect the dots. Can you guys help me out with that?
Yeah, I don't know I don't have the specific numbers in myself, so.
we derive revenue from Mercedes, we derive revenue from Mercedes. I understand, Mike, you're asking the same question, I respect that, you're an accountant, I don't know the exact number. I can't say it any clearer, I don't know the exact number.
I'm not asking
What I
for
can what I can tell you is that we derive revenue from Mercedes-Benz. They were on the verge of leaving, we need them here because we need that tax revenue, irrespective of what the number is. They have their own restraints because Mercedes-Benz of Germany
I understand that.
I'd
I was just wondering about that.
like to finish my answer.
Sure.
Okay. And for them to be able to stay here, they have some significant restrictions from Mercedes-Benz of Germany relative to expansion and relative to presentation. So there's compromises that have to go back.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to evaluate, you know, your financial acumen as board members, you know, when I ask these questions. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
And I appreciate it.
Ms. LaSorsa, did you want to say anything in response?
I can very briefly just tell you that it's not something that's come before the planning board, and I don't have the information
Well, I figured.
otherwise.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yep,
Maybe this is for Dan and John right now, and then Greg, you can answer. One of my concerns has always been, I've been here almost 27 years, is the lack of police coverage in our town. We do not have 24-hour police coverage. After a certain hour on certain days, we depend upon the state police. The state police are not available. They're patrolling the highways in 3 towns at the same time. So response time is extremely slow because I've called them and sometimes I haven't got a response from them. To the current town board members, anybody ever push this issue with our town board of getting 24-hour coverage by our own police force for our safety? I know we have the safest town in the United States moniker. You know, statistics are misleading. We have a lot of issues in this town. They may not be murders, they may not be something that you're gonna see down county. We do have robberies, we do have break-ins, we do have car accidents, we do have domestics. We do have issues at the school. So what's the talk on the town board over the last several years and going forward regarding our police force?
I believe the order is Mr. Welch, then Mr. Pavolotto, and then Mr. LaSorsa.
So in the past few years, we have significantly bolstered the police force with additional full-time staff members, more commitment coming out of them, and better quality work. And the budget has, as a consequence, you know, seen some increases. I think everybody feels that in balance, those increases have been worth it, that the town people place a very high value on their local police force and like the way they perform. But this is one of the compromises to try and achieve some kind of a budgetary balance as the 24-hour coverage with them. That would certainly be an additional hit to the budget. I don't think there's any plan to do that now. No one's belittling the fact that, you know, life doesn't stop in the middle of the night. We are fortunate in this town, I think, to have the state police actually resident in the town, so their response is, fairly good. It's not as good as if we had our own cops on it, that's for sure. But we have given this a lot of thought, and I think we're in a pretty good place now. But if the, populace rose up and said, we want to spend some extra money on that, then it could be done. But right now, there's no proposal on the table.
I don't think the populace realizes it, to be honest with you. I don't think many people realize that we don't have 24-hour coverage.
Yeah.
It's not something we want to put out there, but it's the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Barbara. We've shored up our police force, and that's why we've won that award, I think, for 4 or 5 years running. We've extracted some of the part-timers, recently brought in a new chief. We've hired full-timers, and we tried to do it in the context of having them live in town as their own chief. And we also, in part of our approach to safety, as Dan mentioned, incentivize the state police to come in, and they have their barracks in town. So we do have 24-hour coverage. We don't have it by our local police, and I don't suspect we will have it by our local police because it is a budgetary restriction.
Do we know how much it will increase their budget from?
No, because we have, the other thing is that we do look to our department head, so we will look to the chief and ask him, how can we enhance coverage within budgetary restrictions, because we have an exposure on it, and he's never come to us and said that he felt we needed, any of the 3 chiefs I've worked with, 24-hour coverage, not that I'm aware.
Well, a few things. It's interesting that John mentioned that they like to have the police officers live in town, because as some of you may be aware, this board, the current board voted to do away with preferences for workforce affordable housing for people such as policemen and fire department who live in this community, who would like to live in this community. So in order to possibly have a police officer live in this community, and maybe if his salary is such that he would be able to be eligible for workforce affordable housing, right now he would not be able to get a preference in this town. He'd have to go to Westchester County and get online, and maybe Westchester County will give him the apartment, and maybe it won't. But that's the way it works in Lewisboro right now. Now, in terms of a 24-hour police force, Barbara, I know that this is an issue that you have been championing for a while. Let me just say this, okay? Many people would probably disagree with what you're saying, and you noted that in your own preamble, okay? But I think I heard tonight, correct me if I'm wrong, that the money's available for a 24-hour police force. Did I misunderstand you?
The money's available.
I thought I heard you say that.
I don't believe
No?
so.
Oh, okay. Well, if the money's available for it, I think you should have it. I thought I heard that. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think it's a budgetary issue, and I don't know that it would be, this board would support that. Might be, if I'm on the board, it might be another one's 4-to-1 type situations. But I would be very respectful of the issue of the budget with respect to having a 24-hour police force.
Thank you. Detective?
Speaking of the police department, I don't know what the annual budget is for the Lewisboro Police, perhaps you folks do, but I think it was Mount Kisco that dissolved their municipal police department and turned over the police services to Westchester County, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Could you gentlemen each maybe comment on your thoughts about the possibility of just eliminating the Lewisboro Police and if you think that would save our town money? I don't know what the cost to Mount Kisco is to enlist Westchester County to police their town, but is that something that, I mean, I gotta tell you, I never see, the only time I see a cop in Lewisboro, in Golden Bridge, is when they're hiding out on 22 trying to pick off people.
That's true.
And I think, John, you know my background in law enforcement. You know, that's why people, everybody likes a fireman because they're always the good guy. Cops, they like you when you're arresting a bad guy, and they hate you when you write a ticket. And the only time people in Goldsboro see the police here is when they're hiding along 22, picking off people that have been working all day, getting off the highway. You know, it's a great place to hide or to get summonses because they're, you know, close proximity to restroom and you know, something, a restaurant over there, but I don't think, I mean, I've lived here 25 years, I have never seen chief of police in Lewisboro patrolling our town. I couldn't even tell you who he is. I mean, they should be driving around on patrol, that's their primary function, patrol. I never see anybody. You know, an elderly neighbor of mine a year ago fell down on the street. I called 911, I went down there to give him aid. Paramedic showed up, I think a Lewisboro police officer showed up about 30 minutes later. I mean, I don't even know why we have a police department in this town. I think I saw a canine unit recently. What do we have a canine unit for in this little town? I can't imagine the cost of having a canine unit and the vet fees and everything else to go. Lewisboro police should be out in the radio cars patrolling, because that's what they're supposed to be doing. So, again, can I ask you, could someone here?
We'll start with Mr. Papalardo. We'll start with.
Listing Westchester County and save this town some money.
Excellent question, I'm gonna respond to it. I wanna just come back to the workforce affordable housing that Mr. Source made reference to, and I'm gonna come right back to your question. We absolutely did eliminate that, we eliminated that because our neighbor in Bedford got sued and had to pay $250,000 in counsel fees and damages as a consequence of having the exact same preference in their statute. I strongly urge us to eliminate that because we were the next town I felt was gonna get sued. I didn't want to absorb that hit. Relative to your question, Robin, and it's a good one. I have, Greg speaks to the issue of being frequently 4-to-1. I voted against hiring a police officer because I thought we were overstaffed about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was the lone opponent to that. You're asking two questions. Merge with Mount Kisco to eliminate that budget, and you're also asking if we're gonna keep them, why don't we sue them? That's how I
I think
understand
he
the
was
question.
referring to Mount Kisco as an example of when
Yeah,
they got.
I got it, I got it.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, we've actually looked into merging, and if you take the temperature of the town, respectfully, you're in the minority. People love having local police officers. And this has been an issue that I have really explored for budgetary purposes. And because I always felt that we lived in a town where maybe that was an area we could reduce financial exposure. It has not been, in my experience, the will of the majority of the people in this town. So that's the answer. We looked into it, and people just seem to be